From Los Angeles to a worldwide audience, this is Boaz Power TV, where we take your life to the next level. Now, internationally known speaker and author, here's Boaz.
Hi, welcome to the Power Show. You are part of the Power Nation, and I'm so delighted that you're here, because here we help to improve your health, your relationships, your finances, your career. This is episode number 82 on Boaz Power TV, and I call this one, How Deep Are Your Roots? We are the sum of our ancestors. Knowing more about our roots can broaden our horizons and in some cases fill in missing pieces of an important puzzle, you. Thus the question, how deep are your roots? Well, my parents were from Europe and I was born in Israel. My father left Austria in 1935 to go to Palestine as a pioneer to help build the new Jewish homeland. My mother did the same thing from Poland in the same year. Now, in 2003, I learned some very interesting things about my father's family by reconnecting with two uncles I had not seen in many years. I learned that two of my father's brothers had immigrated to the U.S. in the late 30s. A third uncle named David, the oldest, ended up in a concentration camp in Germany. Now, one of the uncles in the U.S. in 1941, I learned, paid bribe money, about $500, which was a lot of money at that time, to get my Uncle David out of a concentration camp. He paid it to somebody in Switzerland in the form of bribe money and bought my Uncle David's life. Isn't that amazing? So Uncle David left on a ship loaded with Jews headed for Cuba. At the last moment, Cuba refused them entry and sent the ship back to Europe. Could you imagine? You come all across the ocean and a country will not let you in. They didn't get a passport to come to America. The U.S. wasn't accepting anybody at the time who was Jewish from Europe. Uncle David was thrown back into a concentration camp, then escaped, and he spent a number of months in World War II being hidden in the basement of a family in France. He eventually made his way to the United States. Now, this was some of what I learned in a visit with my Uncle Bennie in Vienna, and then he took me to the street where my father was born and pointed out where their small house used to stand. And then in 2003, my first trip back to Israel in 46 and a half years, I had the opportunity of learning more about my roots. My first stop was in Jerusalem at the Holocaust Museum, known as Yad Vashem. I remember my mother telling me that she had lost a brother and her parents in the Holocaust. I went to the Hall of Names and asked the lady at the desk to see if there were any records from Bennie, Poland, the city where my mother was born. We checked under her maiden name of Wallerstein. 6 records came up on her computer, on the secretary's computer. She highlighted the first one, and a form came on the screen in the name of Abraham Wallerstein, my mother's brother. I was amazed. Now, when the second form came up on the screen, she said, "This is a sister." I was stunned. I didn't know that. She brought up the next record and said, "This is another brother." I was in shock as she brought up the fourth record, another sister. The last 2 forms were my grandparents. Now, as she printed out the forms for me, I noticed something familiar. They were all in my mother's handwriting. She had submitted them in 1971. Suddenly, my great admiration of my mother's positive attitude grew even more in size as I realized that she had lost 4 brothers and sisters along with their parents in the Holocaust. I thought it was just 1 brother and her parents. I don't know why. Now, next I traveled to Rehovot, where I was born, a small town outside Tel Aviv. It located about 15 miles southeast of that city. The nearby farming community of Bilu is where we lived until I was 6. Bilu in 1953, when we moved to the city of Tiberias on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, had only about 200 people residing there. I found that fact had not changed much in 50 years. I drove down the street where we used to live and knocked on the door of a house that might have been ours so many years ago. And there I met Ronnie. He's a little older than I am, and amazingly, as a lifelong resident of Bilu, he remembered my family and all of our names after 50 years. Incredible! Ronnie pointed out our house next door to his, and it was a small 2-room structure in 1953 and had been enlarged to encompass 4 rooms and indoor plumbing. Ronnie then took me around the block to a makeshift museum where the history of Bilu was kept, and there we found a written request from my parents dated 1952 to buy materials to enlarge our house. I was amazed. My next stop in Israel was in Tiberias, where we lived until I was 9 and then immigrated to the United States. I found the building where we lived on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. It looked very much like it did in 1956. The bottom floor was a Scottish church. The top floor was comprised of apartments. Those apartments had now become a school. I walked through the rooms that used to be our apartment and out on the porch overlooking the Sea of Galilee. It was as if I was there just yesterday. Amazing how quickly time passes. A 30-minute drive into the northern Galilee led me to a kibbutz called Ayelad Shachar. My parents were members there in 1939. That's where my sister was born. I found a little archive building and told the lady there about my parents. She checked some records and quickly produced an old ledger. Pointing her finger to one specific entry in Hebrew, she said, "This is your family." There were notes about my parents being there for 16 months and about the birth of my sister in 1939. It was another amazing moment. Within a period of 48 hours in Israel, I was able to step back into my family's history in the first half of the 20th century. I'd come to Israel looking for a little tie to my past. I found volumes. I also gained a higher level of respect and appreciation for my parents and my ancestors. I will never be the same. How deep are your roots? Maybe you'd benefit from doing a little digging. So the affirmation for this episode of Boaz Power TV, it's an affirmation of perspective. You may want to write it down. Understanding my history can help me appreciate my future. Understanding my history can help me appreciate my future. And I want you to know I appreciate you being with me on these messages. By the way, I have many more messages posted on YouTube. Here's the connection. Let me show you. My YouTube channel has many of my videos, many of my broadcasts right there. And all you have to do is go to youtube.com/user/Boaz Power TV. That's youtube.com/user/Boaz Power TV. And you're welcome to leave any comments on my YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me. You are special, you are unique, you are destined for greatness. I see it in you. You are a champion. Have a powerful day.
This has been Boaz Power TV. To comment, see other episodes, or to subscribe to this free broadcast, go to our blog at boazpower.com. That's boazpower.com. We're here to take your life to the next level.